Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi, bringing you this special broadcast of top stories. We're going to cover the top domestic developments. We're going to also cover the top international news, bringing you the latest from the Israel-Hamas conflict as well. All of that bringing to you live from our studios here in the National Capital Region, styled exclusively by Paul Moll, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, our first focus on the top domestic development. In Kerala today, tragedy struck at a Jehovah's Witnesses convention in Kalamassery, where an explosion struck the Zamra International Convention Center. At least 2,000 people were in attendance for a 3-day convention over there. A lady lost her life and 23 others at least sustained injuries. Now the blast took place 5 minutes after the prayer session began. This according to the witnesses on the spot. Now, after panic, hue and cry, the injured were rushed to nearby hospitals, including the Kalamassery Medical College. The cause behind this devastating incident remains unknown, casting a somber atmosphere over the entire area. Now, most of the critically injured people have sustained serious burns and they have been rushed to nearby government and private hospitals. The Kerala police has sounded a high alert across all 14 districts following the explosion in Kochi. Now, the blast seems to have been caused by IED and low-intensity explosives, as reported by the DGP after a preliminary probe. Now, the DGP, the National Investigation Agency, the NSG, the ATS teams, and all the operatives have rushed to the site of the blast. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has termed the explosion that took place in Kochi's Kalamassery area as unfortunate, adding that all top officials are in Ernakulam to collect details regarding the incident. Kerala Chief Minister has also called for an all-party meet on Monday, the 30th of October, in the state capital of Thiruvananthapuram. Now, alerts have also been issued in bordering districts of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Security has been beefed up around churches in the national capital as well as the metro stations. But before we move on, let's listen in to the major stakeholders here.
അങ്ങേയറ്റം ദൗർഭാഗ്യകരമായ സംഭവമാണ് കളമശ്ശേരി നടന്നിട്ടുള്ളത്. അതിന്റെ മറ്റു വിവരങ്ങളൊക്കെ ശേഖരിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നേ ഉള്ളൂ. എറണാകുളത്തുള്ള പോലീസ് ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥരൊക്കെ അവിടെ എത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. DGP അടക്കമുള്ള ഉയർന്ന പോലീസ് ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥർ അവിടേക്ക് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഏതാനും സമയം കൊണ്ട് അവിടെ എത്തുന്ന നിലയുണ്ടാവും. മറ്റു കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇപ്പോൾ പറയാറായിട്ടില്ല. ഗൗരവമായി തന്നെ അതെടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നീക്കിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അല്ല, ആ വിവരങ്ങളൊക്കെ അവരെ അന്വേഷണത്തിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് കിട്ടേണ്ടതാണ്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരാൾ മരണപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. 2 പേരുടെ നില കുറച്ച് ഗുരുതരമായ അവസ്ഥയിലുണ്ട്. മറ്റു ചിലർ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലുണ്ട്. അതിന്റെ മറ്റു വിവരങ്ങളൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് പിന്നീട് കിട്ടേണ്ടതാണ്. കിട്ടിയതിനു ശേഷം പറയും.
Today morning at 9:40 a.m. approximately, there was an explosion in Zamra International Convention Center, Kalamassery, in which 1 person died and 36 persons are undergoing treatment as per our information. In that convention center, Jehovah Witness regional convention was happening, and all our senior officers, including the Commissioner of Police and others, are at the spot. They are investigating the matter. Our additional DG Law and Order is already on the way. He will be reaching soon, and myself will be reaching the incident place shortly, and we are examining the all angles, and we will find out who is behind this, and we will take very stringent action. At the same time, I would request everyone to maintain peace, remain calm, and I also request that no provocative posts or hate posts should be posted on the social media. If anybody is doing such thing, we will take very stringent action against them also. Thank you. Preliminary investigation shows it is a IED device, and we are examining it. At this stage, I cannot tell anything. Only after investigation, I can confirm you the details. Nobody spoke to me from the MHA. I will be going there right now. Okay.
Special team is there?
We will be constituting a special team for this today itself. Today, after I reach the spot, we will constitute a special team.
So totally 52 persons were brought to the hospitals, including medical college. Here 37 persons were brought injured and one was brought dead. So at present, IP admission is 30, out of which 18 are in ICU and 6 are critically ill. And among these 6 people, we have a child who is 12-year-old. So every possible measures, and other patients are in other private hospitals, in different private hospitals, nearby private hospitals. So in my medical college, we have 20 injured persons in the wards and also 10 in ICU. And these 10 who are admitted in the wards, they will be discharged after the observation. They are given the preliminary, because they have superficial burns, so they will be discharged by this evening. And medical bulletin will be released soon. Every data will be included in that. So far, the identity of the dead person, the killed person, is not and it's not found. So police is trying their best to identify the person. Yes.
There was a fire, consequence blast. First there was a major blast, second one was minor, and one lady died, completely burned, 100% burned, and 25 persons are in the hospital. Out of 25, 6 persons are in IC unit. 2,000, around 2,000. Immediately started from their own, and they had a evacuation plan. Usually they are requesting to their audience regarding the evacuation plan. That is why the accident is and casualties are less.
Now, the aspect of radicalization is also something that's not new to Kerala. Take a look at this history of how the rise of radicals has taken shape in Kerala. In 1994, formation of the radical group, the NDF, occurred. Then, in 2005, you have the Kalamassery bus burning case that became a highlight. In 2006, the Kozhikode twin blast case came to light. After which, in the year 2010, Professor T.J. Joseph was attacked for alleged blasphemy. Meanwhile, 5 years later, in 2015, the ISIS recruitment plot was unearthed in Kerala. 2021, 8 people were on the ISIS recruitment drive that were charge sheeted. In 2021 as well, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan revealed that 100 people have joined the ISIS since 2019. Then in 2022, a person hailing from Kerala was killed in an ISIS suicide attack in Afghanistan. And of course, the most recent one that has now come to light. In 2023, the blast in Jehovah's Witness Convention in Kalamassery. Now, of course, what is behind this blast? That is something that only the NIA and a formal statement from the police authorities can clarify. Well, now, meanwhile, at the same time, it's important to note that Hamas leader Khalid Mashal's virtual participation at a pro-Palestine event organized by the Solidarity Youth Movement, the youth wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami in Malappuram, that has stirred up a debate. The event was organized on the 28th of October. Now, the Solidarity Youth Movement raised the slogan, quote-unquote, uproot bulldozer Hindutva and apartheid Zionism during its rally, and attempted to strike a close relationship between the ideologies of Hindutva and Zionism. Now, former head of Hamas, Mashal, addressed the rally online and called upon the world to aid Hamas in its war against Israel. His address at the rally caused a huge row as India stands firmly against terrorism. The BJP state president of Kerala called for the arrest of the organizers. The BJP Kerala said that the ruling party in Kerala was trying to glorify Hamas under the guise of quote-unquote save the Palestine and Palestinians slogan. The BJP said the Hamas was a terror group and any connection with it or support to it should be condemned. Next up, shifting our focus to stories about climate change. Important to talk about those as well. Here in the national capital, Delhi continues to suffer as the overall air quality index stands at 309, which is in the very poor category as per Suffer India. Now, according to Centre's air quality early warning system for the national capital, the city's air quality deteriorated to the very poor category due to slow wind speed at night and a dip in temperatures. The air quality is expected to remain very poor till the end of the month, according to the CPCB. Now, according to an analysis conducted by the Delhi Pollution Control Committee, the capital experiences peak pollution from the 1st of November to the 15th of November, when stubble burning incidents in Punjab and Haryana peak as well. And the air quality index is not the only concern that India has to deal with. A UN report has warned that India may be heading towards a groundwater depletion tipping point. The Interconnected Disaster Risks Report 2023 has found that 27 of the world's 31 major aquifers are depleting faster than they can be replenished. Now, why is it important to us? It's because India is the world's largest user of groundwater, exceeding the use of the United States and China combined. The northwestern region of India serves as the breadbasket for the nation's growing 1.4 billion people, with the states of Punjab and Haryana producing 50% of the country's rice supply and 85% of its wheat stocks. However, 78% of the wells in Punjab are considered overexploited, and the northwestern region as a whole is predicted to experience critically low groundwater availability by the year 2025. The tipping point in this case is reached when the water table falls below a level that existing wells can access. Once crossed, farmers will no longer have access to groundwater to irrigate their crops. This not only puts farmers at risk of losing their livelihood, but can also lead to food insecurity and put entire food production systems at risk of failure. Meanwhile, authorities on Saturday urged thousands of people in Australia's Queensland state to evacuate as bushfires have destroyed at least 30 homes and continue to threaten rural towns. More than 35 bushfires were burning on Saturday in Queensland, with the town of Tara, about 890 kilometers north of state capital Brisbane, among areas most at risk, according to the fire authorities. Meanwhile, in Mexico, Hurricane Otis has wreaked havoc in southern Mexico, with at least 27 people reported dead and 4 missing in the southern state of Guerrero. The Category 5 hurricane has now weakened into a storm, but this is not the hurricane. What it's left behind is a massive trail of destruction. Take a look at this next report.
Hurricane Otis barreled into Acapulco, Mexico as a Category 5 storm early on Wednesday. The Mexican beach resort was pummeled with torrential rain and fierce winds, reaching 165 miles per hour, battering hotels and sending tourists running for cover. Otis is one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit the region. After reaching the shore as a Category 5, it quickly weakened to a Category 4 storm. Its power slackened further as it moved inland, reducing to a tropical storm.
No sabemos.
President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said there were no immediate reports of fatalities from the storm, but he cautioned that authorities were struggling to obtain updates and said there were landslides and damage on the roads. Power outages have been reported throughout the region, affecting hundreds of thousands.
Next up, the latest updates from war-torn Gaza. It's the 23rd day of the conflict, albeit the third day of the ground invasion at the hands of the IDF inside the Gaza Strip. Well, now in an official statement, Israeli Army spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has confirmed the expansion of ground operations in Gaza. This strategic move is part of the second phase of a 3-week-long effort to confront the Palestinian terrorist group Hamas. Rear Admiral Hagari emphasized that the ground operation is progressing according to the established plan. Listen in.
הלחימה הקרקעית בצפון רצועת עזה ממשיכה. אנחנו מתקדמים בשלבי המלחמה על פי תוכנית. אנחנו מרחיבים בהדרגה את הפעילות הקרקעית ואת היקף הכוחות שלנו ברצועת עזה. הפעילות מהקרקע מורכבת וכוללת סיכונים גם לכוחותינו. נעשה כל שביכולתנו מהאוויר, מהים ומהיבשה על מנת להבטיח את ביטחון כוחותינו ולהשיג את מטרות המלחמה. עד כה הודענו למשפחותיהם של 311 חללי צה"ל ולמשפחותיהם של 230 חטופים. אנחנו מחבקים את המשפחות, נמשיך ללוותן כל העת. אנחנו עושים הכל כדי להשיב את החטופים הביתה. זהו מאמץ עליון. לוחמי צה"ל נלחמים בשעה זו בשדה הקרב גם למען מטרה זו.
Well, let's bring you a quick summary of what has transpired on the 23rd day of this conflict. 7,700 Palestinians killed as IDF's ground ops enter day 3. The IDF released a video of the expanded military operations in the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, telephone communications and internet connectivity were gradually returning to the Gaza Strip in the early hours today, according to reports by Palestinian media. The destruction of phone and internet connections plunged Gaza into a communications blackout on Friday night, creating an information vacuum amid the heaviest aerial bombardment of the war so far. Gaza's 2.3 million people were already in darkness after most electricity was cut off and fuel for generators ran out. No international aid entered the Gaza Strip on Saturday, according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the military had opened a quote-unquote second stage in the war which aimed to destroy the military and governmental capabilities of Hamas and bring the hostages home. And he added, and I quote, "The battle within the Gaza Strip will be difficult and long. This is our second war of independence." Netanyahu also met with the families of hostages on the evening of 28th October following a protest by relatives outside the Defense Ministry headquarters in Tel Aviv. It was unclear what reassurances he could offer, as there appears to be no plan to negotiate prisoner exchanges or pause the offensive, which Hamas has said is a condition of any release. Last week, Hamas said approximately 50 hostages died in the bombardment. Relatives fear the recent escalation of Israel's assault on Gaza will lead to further deaths. On the other hand, the United Nations Security Council is expected to meet on Monday, the 30th of October, after Israel's expanded Gaza operations. Now, the tanks and the warplanes that you just saw. The Israel Defense Forces released footage on Saturday, October the 28th, of what it said was the start of the second stage in a war against the Islamist group Hamas that's running the Palestinian enclave. The footage showed Israeli tanks in operation in the Gaza Strip and Israeli forces striking what they said were buildings used as meeting points by Hamas. Israel has blockaded and bombarded Gaza for 3 weeks after the Islamist group Hamas's October 7th assault that killed 1,400 Israelis in one of the deadliest days in the nation's 75-year history. Now, though there was no indication of an invasion en masse, Israel said troops that were sent into Gaza on Friday night were still in the field, focusing on infrastructure, including the extensive tunnel network built by Hamas. Israel again told Gazans to move from the north, where it says Hamas is hiding under civilian buildings. Palestinians say nowhere is safe, with bombs also smashing homes in the south of the densely populated territory.
לגבי השאלה שלך על התקשורת, אנחנו מבצעים את כל מה שאנחנו צריכים על מנת להבטיח את כוחותינו ככל שנידרש, זמני או קבוע, ככל שנידרש. בנושא הזה אנחנו לא נאמר יותר.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a warning of a prolonged and challenging conflict as Israel's military invasion of the Gaza Strip gets underway. This comes as Hamas demands the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the hostages they seized 3 weeks ago. The United Nations has also raised concerns about the potential for a high civilian casualty count in Gaza. Netanyahu emphasized that Israel has entered a quote-unquote second stage in its operation against Hamas, involving ground forces and expanded attacks. He framed this as a fight for Israel's survival, asserting that they will be victorious.
אתמול בערב נכנסו כוחות קרקעיים נוספים שלנו בשערי עזה, בפתחו של מעוז הרשע. זהו השלב השני של המלחמה, שמטרותיה ברורות. השמדת היכולות הצבאיות והשלטוניות של החמאס, והחזרת החטופים הביתה. שבכל שלב עד עכשיו, ובכל שלב מעכשיו, אנחנו נמצא כל אפשרות להחזיר את אחינו ואחיותינו החטופים לחיק משפחותיהם. המלחמה בתוככי הרצועה תהיה קשה וארוכה, ואנחנו ערוכים לכך. אחרי המלחמה, כולם יצטרכו לתת תשובות לשאלות קשות, זה כולל אותי, שהמהלך הקרקעי, שאנחנו הרחבנו אותו, יסייע לנו במשימה הקדושה הזאת. בזה אנחנו עוסקים עכשיו. אני לא יכול להגיד לך בהכרח שבפעולה הספציפית הזאת, ברגע הספציפית הזה, הם היו שותפים למיקרו-תכנון, אבל זה שהם מגבים את מכונת המלחמה של החמאס, הם מקיימים אותה, בלי הפיגומים האלה אין חמאס. כמו שאין חיזבאללה, בלי איראן.
Meanwhile, Benny Gantz, who's the war cabinet member, he's on record saying that, well, we will do whatever is right for us and this is total evil against total justice. Listen in to what Benny Gantz had to say.
אנחנו נפעל לעיצוב מחדש של המרחב, והלחימה בטרור מול עזה תימשך בשטח הרצועה לעומקה, בכל מקום, בכל זמן שנידרש לכך, בכדי להבטיח את ביטחון היישובים שיחזרו ויבנו מחדש באזור. התמרון הוא רק שלב אחד במהלך ארוך טווח שכולל היבטים ביטחוניים, מדיניים וחברתיים שיארכו שנים. לא נבטח עוד באחרים, נדיבים ככל שיהיו. רק אנחנו נגן על עצמנו ועל כל יהודי. מאחרי הדמעות שלנו עומדת מדינה ועומד כוח חזק וצודק. היום אני מבקש להגיד לכם, סכנת ההשמדה לא תהיה מנת חלקנו, אלא גורלם של מבקשי רעתנו.
Well, now you heard Benny Gantz over there. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said on Saturday that Israeli forces had unleashed the second phase of the Gaza war as they pressed ground operations against Hamas, vowing to quote-unquote destroy the enemy above the ground as well as below the ground.
Israel is now in its second phase of the Gaza war, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Saturday, adding that forces are carrying out ground operations against Hamas militants. The war inside the Gaza Strip will be difficult and long, and we are prepared for it, he said. This Israel Defense Forces footage purports to show that second stage unfolding in the Hamas-ruled Palestinian enclave. Netanyahu once again called on Palestinian civilians to leave the northern Gaza Strip, the focus of Israel's attack. Israel has tightened its blockade on Gaza and bombarded it for 3 weeks now. People are isolated, with a telephone and internet blackout that began on Friday. Many buildings there have been reduced to rubble. People are scrambling for food, water, fuel, and medicine. Gaza health authorities say over 7,500 Palestinians have been killed in the campaign. On October 7th, an assault by Hamas killed 1,400 Israelis. in the deadliest day of the nation's 75-year history. Meanwhile, there has been growing concern internationally over the toll from the bombing in Gaza and calls for a pause to let aid get to civilians. Here's UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk.
I am raising alarm about the possibly catastrophic consequences of large-scale ground operations in Gaza and the potential for thousands more civilians to die. Continued violence is not the answer.
Also on Saturday, Netanyahu met with families of Israelis being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, vowing to exhaust every possibility to bring the more than 200 of them home.
Well, now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said after he met with his wife at the Kiryat in Tel Aviv for the second time with the representatives of the families of the captives in Gaza. He said and promised the representatives that he will do everything possible to bring about the release of all the captives, and said that this was one of the goals of the war as well. His wife Sarah embraced the families and expressed her support for them at this unbearable time, for each one of them in particular and for the state as a whole. He said, and I quote, "I must tell you before we go into a few more limited details that not only is this effort unceasing, it is continuing, and we will do so vigorously. We will utilize and exhaust every possibility to bring them home. This is before and after the incursion, and the effort is to utilize our capabilities. It is an integral part of the goals for the operations as we have defined them. It is not mere lip service." Meanwhile, Gaza's besieged people had barely any communications with the outside world on Saturday as Israeli jets dropped more bombs. Now, the Israeli military chiefs said a long-threatened ground offensive against Hamas terrorists running the Palestinian enclave was gearing up. The Israeli offensive has led to many buildings being reduced to rubble and shelter hard to find. Gazans are short of food, water, fuel and medicines. Their plight got worse from the night of October 27th, when phone and internet services were cut, followed by heavy bombing through the night. Israel has blockaded and bombarded Gaza for almost 3 weeks now, after the Islamist group Hamas's October 7th assault, which Israel said killed 1,400 Israelis in the deadliest day of the nation's 75-year history. Meanwhile, as Israel bombarded Gaza, some rockets fired from the Palestinian enclave fell on southern Israel in the border area on the 28th of October, setting off fires and smoke. At one point, a ring of fire was visible on the Israeli side. The Israeli military said it had entered North Gaza overnight on the 27th of October and expanded its military operations with infantry and armored corps as it steps up its assault on the Hamas terrorist group. Speaking in Beirut, Hamas official Ghazi Hamad said fighters were battling with Israeli forces and called for an immediate implementation of the United Nations General Assembly decision to allow humanitarian relief into Gaza, warning of a disaster. Meanwhile, a rocket smashed into the shore of Israel's southern city of Ashkelon on the 28th of October, hours after Israel said its troops had entered northern Gaza. According to Israeli media reports, several rockets were fired at Ashkelon at around 3:10 local time. So far, there have been no reports of casualties. And Ashkelon, a city of around 1.5 lakh residents, lies just 20 kilometers from the Gaza Strip. Now, the US military also carried out fresh strikes against 2 facilities in Syria used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, and the groups that it backs. It has also been confirmed by Pentagon, and Pentagon has also said that these attacks are response to a spate of attacks against US forces in both Iraq and Syria.
strikes by 2 U.S. F-16 fighter jets on weapons and ammunition facilities in Syria on Friday are fueling fears that the Israel-Hamas conflict may spread in the Middle East. President Joe Biden ordered the mission in retaliation for attacks on U.S. forces by Iranian-backed militia. The Pentagon said the 2 facilities targeted near Abu Kamal, a Syrian town on the border with Iraq, were used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps and militia groups. U.S. and coalition troops have been attacked at least 19 times in Iraq and in Syria by Iran-backed forces in the past week.
Let me say this before this council.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told the United Nations on Tuesday that Washington would act swiftly if the attacks by Iran's proxies continued.
The United States does not seek conflict with Iran. We do not want this war to widen. But if Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere, make no mistake, we will defend our people, we will defend our security, swiftly and decisively.
Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Lebanon's Hezbollah are all backed by Tehran. Biden sent a rare message to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warning against targeting U.S. personnel in the Middle East, the White House said on Thursday. Iran's Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian followed up with this warning at the United Nations.
I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome to expansion of the war in the region. But I warn, if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire.
The United States has already sent warships and fighter aircraft to the region over the last 3 weeks. And on Thursday at the Pentagon, Brigadier General Patrick Ryder confirmed about 900 more U.S. troops are due there.
While I won't talk specific deployment locations for these forces, I can confirm that they are not going to Israel, and that again, they are intended to support regional deterrence efforts and further bolster U.S. force protection capabilities.
Meanwhile, the recent Hamas terror attacks have raised concerns amongst Israelis. This is leading a few to contemplate leaving the country altogether due to their worries about their safety and frustration with their government's perceived inability to protect them.
Shani could be living her happiest life. She and her friend Noah both recently became mothers for the first time. But being safe as Jews in Israel no longer feels like a given.
I'm 33 years old. I never felt like I need to be ready to go. Israel is my country, is my home. It was always like history, was always stories that happened in the past that never happen again. But now, now it's our life.
They want to be able to leave if they have to, so they're organizing paperwork for their babies.
Carmi doesn't have a passport yet, so we're preparing that. Earlier his vaccinations, that won't hold us up from leaving if we will need to leave.
The women's conversation revolves around the question of whether to stay or go. They say many people are torn.
Israel is made of us, the Jewish people, and if we all leave, nobody will be left. And it's also very sad to think about it.
Here in Tel Aviv, hardly anyone feels like swimming. The mood is somber. Everyone is on edge.
This is our country. We don't have any other place. So, yes, I'm scared, I'm afraid, but I'm not leaving. Never.
A lot of conceptions we had and stories that we told ourselves about what gives us security just broke 2 weeks ago. And now we are trying to establish new stories to tell ourselves what it means to be safe here in Israel.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Both the leaders exchanged views on the deteriorating security and humanitarian situation in West Asia. The Prime Minister took to the microblogging website to tweet that we share concerns regarding terrorism, violence and loss of civilian lives. Both the leaders agreed on the need for early restoration of peace and stability and facilitating humanitarian assistance. And talking about humanitarian assistance, displaced Palestinians have been seen taking shelter underneath makeshift tents at Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip. Now, Israel's military had on Saturday reissued a call for Palestinians to evacuate the northern Gaza Strip ahead of an impending Israeli operation. Israel, which says Hamas has placed its weapons and forces among civilians, has been telling Gazans to move south for their own safety. More than 1.4 million Gazans have fled their homes for temporary shelters under Israel's heaviest ever bombardment. Makeshift tents, an entire city of it, in Khan Yunis, in Gaza. On the other hand, smoke was again seen over the Gaza skyline. Blasts continued to ring out even as an eerie silence can be felt across the strip. Now, shifting our focus back on the 7th of October, the D-Day, the day when the onslaught at the hands of the Hamas terrorists actually took place. Kibbutz Be'eri became one of the first Israeli communities targeted by the Hamas terrorists. It's now been over 3 weeks and dozens of residents still remain missing.
Security is tight in Kibbutz Be'eri today, but at dawn on the morning of October 7th, the army was nowhere to be seen. The more than 1,000 people living here were among the first to be attacked by Hamas fighters. They roamed the kibbutz for hours, firing machine guns, grenades, rocket launchers. The Hamas-led terrorists moved from house to house over hours, killing civilians or taking them hostage. Today, this kibbutz is deserted. All what's left are burnt, destroyed houses and a community in ruins. The Israeli authorities want the world to see this and hear from people who were there.
They burned the house on them, smoke them out. And when they finally opened the doors because they couldn't breathe anymore, they decided who's to live, who's to die.
Rami Gold was part of a small group defending the kibbutz. He said they fired till they ran out of bullets.
And I got to tell you that story because 2 angels came. 2 people from reserve soldiers. I have no idea where they came from. Came to us, gave us ammunition and a cell phone so we can call our families to tell them we're okay.
While bringing you some other top global developments as well, beginning with a sad one first. Matthew Perry, everyone's favorite friend on Friends, sadly passed away on the 28th of October at his Los Angeles home. He was only 54 years old. The law enforcement sources are reporting that Matthew Perry was found dead of an apparent drowning in his own hot tub at his home in Pacific in Los Angeles, California. Reports are also ruling out any foul play in his death. However, the cause of his death hasn't been confirmed by the authorities as yet. Matthew Perry starred in a lot of movies and television shows over his career, but he's best remembered as the lovable Chandler Bing on Friends. The sitcom Friends was a juggernaut that ran for 10 full seasons and made all the 6 leads of the show into mega superstars. Matthew Perry's distinctive contribution to the iconic ensemble cast of Friends was evident in his involvement in shaping Chandler's character. It's a well-known fact that Perry contributed significantly to the show by writing many of Chandler's memorable lines, effectively infusing the character with his own personality and wit. Chandler Bing became a beloved figure, cherished by viewers of all ages. Despite the applaud and fame that Matthew Perry got for his role on the show, he continued to struggle with alcohol and substance abuse issues all his life. In 2022, Perry, in his memoir titled Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, spoke at length about his addiction issues and how they affected his life. Perry's friends, family, and fans are all distraught and devastated over the shocking news of his death. In a heartbreaking irony, Perry's last picture on Instagram was a picture of the hot tub, which has now gone viral. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who was a classmate of Matthew Perry, posted on X saying, and I quote, "Matthew Perry's passing is shocking and saddening. I'll never forget the schoolyard games we used to play, and I know people around the world are never going to forget the joy he brought them. Thanks for all the laughs, Matthew. You were loved and you will be missed." The official account of Friends on Instagram posted a heartfelt tribute to Perry, writing, and I quote, "We are devastated to learn of Matthew Perry's passing. He was a true gift to us all." NBC, the platform which aired Friends from 1994 to 2004, said in a statement, and I quote, "We are incredibly saddened by the too soon passing of Matthew Perry. He brought so much joy to hundreds of millions of people around the world with his pitch-perfect comedic timing and wry wit. His legacy will live on through countless generations." Indian stars like Ranveer Singh, Kareena Kapoor, Kiara Advani, Bipasha Basu, and others all paid tribute to Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry, 54 years old, passed away today and is survived by his parents. Shifting our focus to Bangladesh, tens of thousands of opposition supporters have flooded the streets of Bangladesh's capital, protesting against Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government. They demand her resignation before the upcoming January general election, the transfer of power to an interim caretaker government, and the release of charges against Khaleda Zia, the ailing chief of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BNP, to allow her medical treatment abroad. Over 1 lakh supporters from major opposition parties have called for Hasina to step down for a free and fair vote under a neutral government. Clashes erupted near the city's largest Catholic church, with opposition supporters allegedly involved in violence and incidents like torching a bus and a police post. BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami have declared a nationwide strike in protest. The clashes resulted in at least 2 deaths and numerous injuries as security forces confronted opposition members in multiple locations in Dhaka. The conflict began in Kakrail area when BNP activists, led by former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, reportedly attacked a bus carrying members of the ruling Awami League to a separate rally nearby. Next up, take a look at this Bhutanese tilt. Last week, Bhutan's Foreign Minister Tandi Dorji made a historic visit to Beijing, drawing attention to the Himalayan kingdom. Dorji's visit to Beijing was warmly received, featuring meetings with Vice President Han Sheng and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, as well as a tour of the city's historical landmarks, according to China's foreign ministry. What's been dubbed a breakthrough by Chinese experts led to the signing of a cooperation agreement outlining the responsibilities and functions of a technical team for border delineation. Bhutan has always had strong ties with India and is the only Asian country without formal diplomatic relations with China. It's also one of the 2 nations with ongoing land border disputes with China, the other, of course, being India. The heart of the matter lies in border talks that began in the year 1984, focusing on the contested Doklam Plateau, where a tense standoff between Chinese and Indian troops occurred very recently in the year 2017. During the recent visit of Bhutan's Foreign Minister Tandi Dorji to Beijing, progress was reportedly made in these border negotiations, indicating a warming relationship between China and one of India's closest allies. Well, so what does Bhutan's tilt mean? And what does it mean for our own geopolitics and diplomacy? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Top Stories. Lots more continues right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं क्योंकि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
कोटा जाने वाली बीच राह में आधे टेस्ट देके हैं सिलेक्शन की चाह में
ऑल इंडिया का बच्चा कोटा जाता है
This rat race is for rats, not for humans. So why should we even be a part of it?
The Rat Race. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
They picked my husband. He was tortured there for 2 years. He was enforced disappeared. We had no idea where he is. Within 15 minutes, we got the information that the whole area is surrounded by Pakistan Army. I came out from that in disguise, and after 5-6 hours, I was in Kandahar. I don't have any message for Pakistan. There is no politician in Pakistan. They are puppets of Pakistan Army.
Streaming now